All right. Hey, hello. Thank you for coming today. My name is Mark Longton. I'm a program manager on Microsoft Teams, and I'm responsible for security, privacy, compliance, as well as our teams and channel management in the product. So when we started building Microsoft Teams, we realized early on that organizations became accustomed to the security, privacy, compliance that Exchange and Skype for Business have in place. And we knew if people are going to use our product to do communication, collaboration, we had to be at the same standards, or people wouldn't want to use Microsoft Teams. So early on, we went after this. And even November 2016, when we came out in preview, we had already gone through a compliance SOC audit, which to validate that we had met these standards as well at the same level. And then basically security, privacy, and compliance, we felt like it really needed to be a core part of the product. We couldn't do it as an add-on after the fact where we'd come out live and then later worry about compliance. So it's been early on been a core focus for us. So I'm going to go over what we do around security, privacy. I'll cover where we're at with certification and the various information protection capabilities we have in place today and a little bit where we're going forward. And then Ansuman and Pratik are going to come up and demo a lot of these capabilities to kind of make it real of what's enabled today. So I'll show that. So first of all, security and privacy are core pillars of the product, of course, and to gain trust for folks to use our product. When it comes to security, there's a whole bunch of Office 365 data handling standards we adhere to. Data at rest is encrypted, data in transit is encrypted, all keys are stored in Key Vault. We have a bunch of standard tools we install on all of our services, things like fuzz testers, and we have credential scanners, and there's a long list of utilities that we use to help us monitor and track security. And then every time we have a feature, we pull together a threat model. We have security reviews with dedicated security folks in our organization. If we identify vulnerabilities, log bugs, and fix them, of course. And then we pay a rotating set of penetration testers. These are basically third-party hackers, basically professional hackers that we pay to try to find vulnerabilities in our products. And then we have a rotating set, they're literally around the world. And then obviously to identify vulnerabilities, and again, find bugs, fix them. And then lastly, a big thing we also do is Microsoft Teams participates in the bug bounty program. So friends, researchers, hackers can find if they find any security bugs, we actually pay them money. I think it's up to like $15,000 for finding any sort of security bugs. So we kind of look at it as multiple layers of security, and it's something you just continue to evolve, and it's obviously crucial for anyone trust to put their corporate data into our system. So it's something we take very, very seriously. On the privacy front, we also have dedicated privacy folks. A few things here worth noting. Customer data at rest remains in region. So if, for example, you're an organization that has Office 365 subscription in, say, the United Kingdom, your data will remain in European Union data centers and adhere to European Union laws as well. And then another thing, things like customer content can't end up in logs, it can't end up in telemetry, so we're constantly screening for that and making sure that developers aren't introducing anything that's going to break those rules. And then any operation folks, whoever do need to access any of the Azure servers, have to go through a just-in-time process where their access is granted just in time, and then when their task is completed, their access is removed, and all this is audited into an audit log for tracking purposes and adhere to the compliance rules. And when we go through these audits, we have to provide evidence that we are adhering to all these rules as well. It's another big thing that's going on. This is not just Teams, but across Office 365 is the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, which is out of the European Union, and it's basically a set of privacy rules for the most part, and we are tracking to adhere to that ahead of the May 2018 deadline. So where we're at on certification. So we've gone through, so Microsoft kind of breaks down, there's all these certifications that we adhere to, and we kind of break it down into tiers. So we're currently at what we call Tier C certification. So this means we've gone through an external SOC audit, we've gone through an external ISO audit, we adhere to HIPAA, the EU model clauses, and these audits happen on a recurring basis every single year. And to do that, you go through obviously all the security, the privacy, there's a bunch of operation controls, and there's like 950 controls that you go through. And we do an internal audits first, and then we do an external audit with a third-party vendor that comes in. Up in the top, I guess it would be left-hand corner there, there's some links, and that's where you can actually download audit reports that have happened. For example, the SOC one is a very popular one that people are interested in reading when they're evaluating using a product like ours. And then looking forward, we're actually working towards what we call Tier D level certification. And the big thing here is the FedRAMP audit. This is for the US government that they're working towards now. I mentioned in our architecture call just recently, our session, I guess, was we're looking to deploy for the US government data centers in next year in 2018 as well. So now I just want to run through. So this is a roadmap of things that we've achieved to date. I'll just kind of walk through them. So the first four, archive, compliance content search, eDiscovery, legal hold, we made those available. Basically what happens is we publish the chat content into Exchange mailboxes. So if you have a chat with someone, that chat is posted in a hidden folder of the user's mailbox of all participants in that conversation. If you have a team conversation, that chat is actually posted into the group mailbox. And by doing that, it enables things like the eDiscovery. So when you do eDiscovery for email or you do eDiscovery for chats, it's the same tool, so it's very easy for any of your legal folks who are having to do this process to learn to use Teams versus how they've done this with email in the past. And then same with legal hold, where you put a user's mailbox on hold. It's the same thing. You'd be putting the user's mailbox hold and be able to, that would apply to Teams as well as to your email. Audit reporting, this is basically where we capture key audit events that occur within Teams. So this is creation of a team, deletion of team, creation of a channel, deletion of channel. There's a whole bunch of events there, and this is available to your system administrators for audit purposes. I think I mentioned this in the architecture talk recently, where even internally we had someone delete a team, and that was our core team that we were using early in development, and we were able to look at the logs, find out who it was, and they were embarrassed, and we were able to recover the team. But so it's something that's definitely something that system administrators want to know about for understanding what's happening in the system, or things like adding a bot to a team and things like that. That's all tracked and logged. Exchange online protection. So Teams has the ability to send an email directly to a channel, which is a handy feature. And in doing that, we actually pass through Exchange online protection, basically to protect against malware and spam into your system. And then conditional access and Intune MAM. This is basically for organizations who want to, there's more and more bring your own devices, people working from home, et cetera, and there's a need to add controls and policies that apply to those applications, and Teams, we're actually going to be demoing that in a little bit, has basically built that into Microsoft Teams to allow you to do things like you can wipe a device, or you can stop someone from copy and paste, et cetera, in the app. And then moderator support. This actually came out of education, which is kind of funny, where basically you have a teacher and you have a student. You can imagine a student in a team typing something inappropriate, and the idea was that the teacher needed the ability to delete that content if they did something inappropriate. And so when we did this, we started talking to some commercial customers, and we found there's a lot of demand for the exact same feature for, I imagine some people have inappropriate content and that someone may post, as well as it could be something like intellectual property, could be insider trading, whatever the topic may be, but having the owner ability. This is an option you can turn on or off. And then allowed list of apps. When we came out with bots, connectors, tabs, and originally when Teams first was launched, you could turn them all on or all off. And that was fine for some companies, but others quickly gave us feedback where they needed to vet each individual app within their own organization, and then they wanted to choose which apps they would enable for their organization, and that's what this is about, giving more granular control. And that's a general feedback across the whole product. You kind of start out with maybe a big switch, and then move into more granular controls to meet the more finite needs of the various organizations and where people are at. So, and then Windows Information Protection. Basically, with this, Teams is seen as a work application versus a personal application. We've had support for that fairly recently as well. So, looking forward, a couple things I want to talk about that are coming down the pipe. So, tenant level retention, that's under development right now. This is the ability, so Teams is a persistent chat. It keeps the data indefinitely, but some organizations who view the data as a liability they want to get rid of it as soon as they deem it no longer useful. So if, say you have a chat, and they might set a policy that says, I want my chat data deleted after 30 days. But then the Teams, because I might work on projects that are long running, I want to set a different policy. It says Teams data I might want to keep for 2 years, or whatever the policy you choose to set. And that's what retention's about. And it's, again, it'd be tenant specific, where you would be able to configure that whatever is needed for your organization. And then eDiscovery, I mentioned we have eDiscovery today for files and chats, and that's been available since our general availability back in March of this year. But we are adding metadata about calling and meeting, which is, as with the convergence with Skype for Business, have you seen calling's becoming a much bigger deal? And that's just a gap we need to fill to get that metadata about those calls and meetings that occur within Microsoft Teams and make those available for eDiscovery. The next two are a little bit further out, but I just kind of want to give you a sense of where we're going next, because this is definitely the information protection is something you just kind of keep churning away at, and there's just so much to do. But specifically around data loss prevention, which is available today in email. So if you want to read about what happens in Exchange, we're looking to apply a similar concept in Microsoft Teams. And then advanced threat protection, where you have basically, as we add things like guest access, and there's more opportunity for people to put in URLs or files that potentially could have malware or threats, that we're going to be able to crack open the URL and look for safe links, and as well as files themselves, and take advantage of that. So that's kind of a little bit where we're going in the fairly near time. So I think I'm going to now have Ansuman come up and run through a demo of some of these. So we won't spend most of the time trying to get into the guts, and so you can actually see how this stuff works. So.
All right. Can everyone hear me well? Thanks, Mark, for that great presentation. I'll just introduce myself again. I'm Anshuman Acharya. I'm a PM on Microsoft Teams, and I work on information protection, data residency, and security and compliance features. So today, our demo is primarily going to be in the Security and Compliance Center, which our friends over in the information protection team, some of whom are here, have built for us. So I'm logged in today as a tenant admin. I'm Anshuman Acharya here in this demo tenant. It's called teamsforthewin.com. Before I go ahead, I just want to tell you a little bit about permissions in the Security and Compliance Center. So this is a role group here, Compliance Administrator, and I'm part of this role group here, which is why I get access to all of the functionality that I'm going to demo today, which is primarily going to focus here on the search and investigation section, as in content search, audit log search, eDiscovery, and some more. Now let's go into Teams. I hope you're all excited about Microsoft Teams with the announcement we've had on Monday. And so this is Microsoft Teams inside this tenant. And I'm in a project called Project Redstone, and it's called Project Redstone Tented. Surely there is something secretive going on here. I'm in the legal channel of this team, and it looks like Supatra is sharing a Redstone memo, and then Dan Stevenson is posting about some stocks and graphs, and then somebody's talking about buying boats at the end of the project. Surely that cannot be something great. Probably a little bit of foul play there, right? So when we have foul play, we probably end up having litigation. And when we have litigation, what we get to do in the Security and Compliance Center is eDiscovery. And what we did with Teams at GA is we made sure that all of Teams content is also available to be submitted as electronic evidence when the court summons for this information. So I have a eDiscovery case here, which is the state of Washington versus Tucker Burns, who used to be a PM on our team and is no longer a PM on our team.
Not due to compliance.
Yeah, not due to compliance. He chose to move on. So this is how the inside of an eDiscovery case looks. So these are the 4 steps. The home page gives you a little bit of information about the case and its status. The next part is really important, hold. And I want to tell you about how Teams plugs in here. So as Mark was explaining, our Teams data goes into user mailboxes for one-to-N chats and goes into group mailboxes for channel messages. So if you wanted to put a legal hold on somebody and make their data immutably preserved for the sake of this case, you would put a legal hold on the user mailbox or the group mailboxes that they're part of, the teams that they're part of. Also, you could use the compliance content search functionality, which is inside the case, to make queries where you could extract this information. Now let me go a little bit deeper into that. So this is the compliance content search tab, and I have 2 search queries already queued up. Let me show you the results of how one looks like. So in this case, I was actually querying for the production server keyword, which is something that conversation was going on about the team. So as you can see, in one view, you can see that there is content about email as well as Teams content showing up. A little tip for all of you here, we use the message type IM for all of Teams conversations, be it chat or channel messages. And so IM is a message type. You can use it in KQL, and you can plug it into the content search query to get those definitions. Now let's look at what a Teams IM here looks like. Okay, thanks for the feedback. All right, is that big enough?
That's better.
So looks like Dan Stevenson, who's in the from, posted a message to Project Redstone, which is the group, which is how we know this is a channel message. And the subject, we actually implemented formatting, so it's easy for admins to understand what's going on. So it's team name / channel name / a number, which is the reply chain ID. Now in Teams, when you go and you see how channel messages are posted, let me go back and show you here. So this is the security channel, and this is the conversation right here in Teams as well. You're seeing the same conversation show up in the compliance content search. So all of these messages are part of one reply chain because they are replies to one message. So all of them are going to have that same common ID. That's how you know that all of those messages were sent in one context. So as you can see, we give you the message body, images, GIFs, attachments, whatever was shared in the image right here in the Compliance Center content search, along with all the other workloads that you're searching. Let me also show you the definition of how this looks like. So this is the compliance content search query. So what I did here is, because my case was all about Redstone, I added the group mailbox into the scope of the content search query. And I also added the group SharePoint site so that I could access all of the documents that are present as part of the group. So just to reiterate, every Microsoft team underneath is a modern group, and every modern group has a modern group SharePoint site. So all of our documents that we store inside the teams and channels get stored inside that SharePoint site, and files that users share in one-to-one chats or one-to-N chats get uploaded into their OneDrive, like Mark was mentioning. So if you include SharePoint and OneDrive locations in the search, all of Teams content is covered as part of compliance content search. All right, let's move on to audit log search, which is a favorite of our admins. So one important thing to note here is that the audit log search functionality in general is not on by default in the Security and Compliance Center. So if you're a new user, you need to first turn it on before the events start getting recorded. Now let me show you all the events that we have over here. So these are the Microsoft Teams events or Teams activities. As you can see, we have a host of activities here around creation of team, deletion of team, addition and removal of channels, changing of organization settings, changing of team settings, addition of apps and bots. And we are working to add more and more events here around membership and a lot more things based on the feedback that you've been giving us. So keep that feedback coming. So let's look at how this works. So there is a start and end date, which is the start and end date of my search for these events. And if I want, I can filter to specific users, because every activity or event is performed by a user in Microsoft Teams. So if you want to look for a particular user that you're searching for, you can use this filter. I've actually filtered the set of events which were produced as the result of this search query onto changed org. So this has given me the changed organization setting in Teams. Let's look at one to see how it looks like. So I clicked on the changed organization setting, which is the item Microsoft Teams enabled. So remember, when we first launched Teams, we had this tenant switch, which tells whether Teams is on or off for the tenant. This is the auditing of that particular switch. So it seems like Lath, my friend, who I'm not sure if he's here, was trying to turn off Teams in this tenant. So this has been recorded here, and it tells you that the setting went from true to false. So it means that Microsoft Teams was turned off in this tenant. So this flyout aims to give you detailed information about the event and equip you with details that you can then export out or filter and search using this portal. One other thing about this portal is you can create alerts, and Microsoft Teams events are also available to be plugged into alerts that you can use to notify admins when a certain event in Microsoft Teams happens. For example, if Teams are getting deleted or Teams are getting added and you want events and alerts, you can set them up. All right. For the next part of our demo, we will move into the Azure portal. So I hope you're all familiar with the new Azure portal, where we have a host of rich functionalities. So the first part of this demo is the Intune app protection section. So as Mark was saying, in this day and age, lots of employees use their own devices and use and access apps like Microsoft Teams. Some of these devices may be managed. Some of them may not be managed. One of the key use cases is how do we protect our data in apps like Teams where the device is not managed? The answer is what our friends over in Intune have built. It's called MAM support without enrollment. So even for devices which are not enrolled in third-party solutions, we've made sure that you can create mobile application management policies for Teams so that you can protect the data. So this here is an example of a policy that I've pre-created for the demo. And as you can see, in targeted apps, I've selected Microsoft Teams iOS app. And in the policy settings, I've applied a host of settings, like including a PIN as mandatory for access and also preventing copy-paste. To demo this, I'll have my good friend and our team's mobile PM, Prateek Stephen, to show you how it works on an iOS phone.
Hi, can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Hi, so I'm Prateek Stephen. I'm the PM lead on mobile. But for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to be Richard, a rather naive employee.
Who has also left the team.
Who's also coincidentally left the team. And I'm using Teams on my personal phone. And let me go and open it. So as you can see, since Anshuman has applied the MAM policy, I need to enter a PIN to access Teams. Because I'm on the phone, it has Touch ID. I can use Touch ID as well. So I can get into the app. Let's see what this message is. So Anshuman has sent Richard some secure information about a project. And because I am naive and very obedient, I see, Richard, please take note. So let me go and copy this into my Notes app and take note of this. So as you can see, because it's MAM enabled, the policy is applied, and it says that my organization's data cannot be pasted here. So this helps IT admins protect your data against malicious as well as unintentional breaches. So you can see that you can't paste, and now you can also see that when your app is in the app switcher, it's blurred, so you can't access the data unless you're in the app and authenticated.
In case I'm looking over, right?
In case somebody's looking over your shoulder, and it's unintentional. So that's a quick demo of how the user sees MAM policies enabled in the app. Thank you.
Thanks, Prateek, for that great demo on MAM. Let's have some claps. We'll continue our demo. So now I'm still in the Azure portal. I'll show you one other feature that the Azure team has implemented, which is really powerful. This is more oriented around services. So this is called Azure Active Directory Conditional Access. So what conditional access aims to do is aims to secure access to different services in your tenant. So services like Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, and we've also made sure that Teams is available in that policy, and you can secure access to Teams through this policy creation interface. One of the key things to notice is that because Teams is built on Exchange and SharePoint, we have set up static dependencies on Exchange Online and SharePoint Online. So if you set conditional access policies on Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, or the Teams cloud service, all of these will affect Teams at the time of login. So here's a sample policy. So this is a Windows device compliance policy for Teams. I've targeted this towards a certain user group, in this case, Project Redstone, of course. So all the people who are members of this particular modern group are targeted by this policy. In cloud apps, I've included Teams, but if, as I was saying, if I would have included Exchange or SharePoint, those policies would apply to Teams as well. In conditions, I've targeted the device platform, that is Windows, because this policy I'm specifically trying to target the Windows platforms in my organization. In controls, I've said grant access to the Teams service, but require multi-factor authentication and also require the device to be marked as compliant by the MDM solution in your organization and require all of the selected controls. So by enforcing this kind of a policy, you make sure that if a person is trying to access the Teams Windows desktop app on a laptop at their home, which is not compliant or has not been set up for multi-factor authentication, they will not be able to access Microsoft Teams on that device, and therefore that device and all of your Microsoft Teams data is secure. Okay, so now I will talk a little bit about the moderation control and the app settings. So this is where today within the admin center you can control switches at the tenant level for Microsoft Teams. So the first thing that I want to show you, and I want to make sure it's big enough, is the apps control. So like Mark was saying earlier, when we started, we had a one switch which would say enable or disable all apps. And just for everyone's information, we call tabs, bots, and connectors as an app. All of these are underneath one umbrella called an app. So as you can see here, all the third-party apps that are published to the Microsoft Teams store are displayed here, and you have checkboxes that you can check or uncheck for each app. And that ensures that till your company has certified that these apps are ready for use for your organization, somebody cannot randomly install or add them to a particular team and start using them without your guidance. There is this third switch here which I want to talk about, which is enable new external apps by default. If I have this as off, any new app that gets added is by default off in this grid in the checkbox until you come and say that it's on, it's not really on, and nobody can use it. And that's for new apps that are getting published onto the store. Let's look at the messaging controls. So for moderation, the feature that we have here is a tenant switch called owners deleting all messages. So this gives the ability, if I turn this on, this gives all team owners the ability to be able to delete any message that was posted in the team in any channel, because if it was inappropriate, you'd rather want to delete it so that other people don't see it, or it's not target of some other litigation later on. One other thing that we've also added recently that I want to highlight here is we have a switch that can be used to disable private chat if you need, if your organization calls for that. There's one last thing I want to demo before I go off stage, which is our retention feature that Mark was talking about that's coming on pretty soon. So as you know, as part of data governance, retention policies are really important, and there is already a story for retention policies in the Security and Compliance Center. So the next few screenshots will show you a little bit about how Teams is going to plug in here. So you would create a policy just like you do today. And then you would name your policy and give it a description, just like you would do today. In settings, you would specify whether you wanted to retain the data and delete it after that time, or just retain it, or just delete data after a certain period of time. In this case, I'm trying to delete data after 7 years. This is the important step. This is where we introduce Teams. So in your set your location steps, if you want to create a policy for Microsoft Teams chat and channel message data, you would pick the middle radio button and target Microsoft Teams conversations only. And then you would have two different location rows, which would be Microsoft Teams chats and Microsoft Teams channel messages. The reason we've done this is because we've heard a lot from our customers that they tend to treat chats as more transient back and forth conversations between users which are non-project related, but they tend to treat channel messages as more project-oriented communications that they want to be around for much longer. And we also within this give ability to say that you want to target your policies to specific sections, that is specific sections of users or specific teams using the controls that you have here, choose users and choose teams. So you would do that, and by default it would be on, and then you would create a policy. We also want to adhere to the SEC rules for our FinServ customers. So preservation lock is something that's going to work for Teams. This lets you create a policy and essentially lock it and throw away the key. So you can't change the policy till the policy expires. So key to note is Microsoft Teams data, chat and channel message data is in mailboxes, and these retention policies are going to wipe it out from those mailboxes, as well as our chat service, which stores these messages. And if you want to create policies for Microsoft Teams files, you have to address them towards SharePoint and OneDrive. So the final step, where you review your settings of the policy that you've created, and boom, you've created your policy, and then you can decide whether you want to preserve your Microsoft Teams data or delete it. So this brings me to the end of my demo, but before I want to end, I want to just emphasize on 3 key points, which are very important. One, enterprise security and compliance features. We've always invested in these features from day 0, and these are super important to us, and we want to keep investing because we understand that these features will enable all of you to have great conversations with your legal departments as you go ahead and broadly deploy Teams in your organization. Number 2, we've taken the principle of leverage rather than recreate from scratch. So backed by our Exchange and SharePoint-dependent architecture, we've made sure that we plug into the great work that's happening in the Office 365 Security and Compliance Center, and we want to be there everywhere where the other workloads are there too. And third, we've gotten some great feedback on the blog posts that I've made through our MVP program, through our TAP customers. Our engineers, PMs, and leadership is super committed and excited to be in close touch with you all, so keep the great feedback coming. I want to thank you a lot for all that feedback. And with that, we'll open up for questions and answers. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a couple of microphones if people do have questions, or afterwards you can come up as well and talk to us. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, please go ahead.
For DLP, do you have plans to integrate the ICAP protocol so that I can point at my existing policies that I've defined?
Yeah, so DLP, we're in the early stages of it. Like I said, it's a little bit further out exactly how it, but the idea is to leverage the same DLP that Exchange email uses today.
Okay.
And it will work. One thing I will call out, some of the DLP that's available with SharePoint today, actually behind the scenes is still working. There's some messaging that we have to do to be able to provide messaging back to the users. And then on the mail, we're still talking with the information protection team, whether it's the same policy or whether people want to have different policies, so that's still being defined. We haven't finalized that.
I can add a little bit of color to that. When we do DLP, we'll have Teams as a special location in the DLP creation flow, and you will be able to set policies for Teams chats as well as files in the DLP creation workflow.
Cool. Thank you.
So we're Exchange hybrid, so we have folks that are on premises as well as in the cloud, and we've had to turn off private chat because of it, because there's no way to log the chats that occur in Teams. We'd like to turn that back on, but what's the future for that?
Yeah, so we're working very closely with the information protection team on that specific problem. So just so everyone's clear, so when we write chats to mailboxes, if you're on premises, of course your mailbox is on premises. So in that example, we actually write the message to cloud storage for each individual user in that case. And so we're working with the eDiscovery team to be able to have eDiscovery work against that cloud storage. And so as far as timing goes, they are working on it. At the best, I could probably say it's looking like sometime in the first half of next year. I don't have a more specific date I can share. Okay. But it is something that there's a lot of organizations in similar situations to yours that we are pursuing that.
All right. So there's no access that we can get yet to that data store?
Today, that's correct. Okay. Yeah, there's also, as part of the GDPR thing I mentioned earlier, one of the laws that we have to adhere to is the right to download your data, as well as data portability laws. So we are working, again, we have a hard deadline of May 2018 before very severe penalties come into place. And so certainly we're looking to be ahead of that.
Yeah, we're looking at eDiscovery export as a way to download your data for GDPR, and we certainly want you to turn back your private chat on.
Yeah, amen. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We're using ADG today with SharePoint and Exchange. How do the policies not step on each other since you're saving content in Exchange and SharePoint from a chat perspective?
Is your question about conflict in retention policies
Yes,
between
that's
Exchange and
exactly.
SharePoint? Yeah, we're aware of that. And because Teams brings in both Exchange and SharePoint, we'll have to rely on the principles of retention, which is, like where there is a precedence already defined by the information protection team, the more restrictive policy wins over. But in general, the way it could manifest in Teams is when your conversations are still there and your file got removed, or your file is still there and the conversation got removed. Is that the use case you're worried about?
But the other
or
is
something else?
between email and chat, there's a type. So the policy is applied independently as well.
Yeah, if the retention policies that you target towards email is going to be completely different from the retention policies that you target towards Teams, because internally they're stored as a different message class. So those won't conflict. So if that was your question, then
That is because you said they were stuffed into hidden.
yeah, they're stored in
Yeah.
the same place, but they internally, the way we implemented it, we use a different message class. So our code is able to target Teams messages separately from email or meeting data or calendaring data, all of that.
And same thing on the SharePoint side then?
On SharePoint side, no. On SharePoint side, we use the same. Our files are the same as any other files that you upload to a SharePoint.
Okay, thank you.
I was just wondering if the switch for allowing owners to delete, content from, any user in the teams, is that going to be, can it be granularly applied either via PowerShell or the GUI or anything like that later on?
Yeah, not today. That's a general trend that we kind of, there's sort of the big switch as we talked about the apps, then you kind of get down. And we are moving more towards just more granular controls as a theme. I don't have a date for that specific toggle, but as a general, I guess high level directionally where we're going is certainly trying to do things at tenant level, then also do settings at user level where you can use PowerShell to do sets of people for particular policies. So that's directionally where we're going. I just don't have a specific date for that particular one. We haven't had a whole lot of feedback for that specific ask.
Okay. The only reason I ask is because we're in a big university and we have students contact us that want to create teams all the time for their personal projects and classes.
Yeah, we talked to a lot of universities, K through 12, students versus staff, and the absolute need to have different policies for each of those.
Yeah.
Very, very clear.
Yeah, and if your problem is about students just creating teams and you don't want them to create it, we suggest that you turn off the groups create permission for them so that they're not able to create groups and stop creation of teams that way, unless they go through your process of creating systematic teams for classes and semesters.
It's less about the creation part and more about the content within the teams itself, because we don't want the students deleting other students' content.
Oh, no, sorry. It's only the owner of the team.
Right, but
So
we
if the
might
student-
allow students to be owners, is what
Okay.
I'm saying. So
Okay.
we don't want students who are going to be owners of teams to be able to delete the
Got it.
content, but if it's a
Fair enough. All right.
teacher, that's okay.
No, it's good feedback.
That's
Thank
great
you.
feedback. We'll relay that over to our education PM. He's not here at Ignite, but we'll do it.
Awesome, thank you.
So soft delete versus hard delete? That's good. You kind of snuck in there. So deletes in Teams, anytime you do a delete, it is a soft delete. Based on the compliance standards that we have to adhere to, the rules are that you must retain data for a minimum of 7 days, a maximum of 30 days. And at that point, it must be hard deleted under the covers. So if a user does a delete of some content, it's soft deleted, and then we do a hard delete. Actually, we're doing it right now at 21 days later to fit within those rules that we're obliged to. And the idea is basically if an organization was doing something illegal and they tried to delete all their data, the courts have a little bit of time to catch up to them, I suppose.
And the deletes
But
get propagated throughout our system. So they get deleted in the primary storage and then over in the Exchange mailboxes where we journal all this data as well.
And that's true with deleting a team, deleting a channel, deleting a chat. And then we're actually working on restore capabilities too. So if you delete a channel, you can restore it, but only within that window, of course. Once the hard delete goes, it's gone unless it's in legal hold.
Sorry to hijack that, but how does that work with GDPR? If you as an organisation, you deleted that data, but actually the data still exists for 3 weeks longer than...
Yeah, so this is all applying. So we have to go through, all this goes through a legal and has been run through. So it is adherence within GDPR. But the primary driver for that wasn't just some feature that we kind of made up. It really came from based on compliance requirements. Yeah. Do you want to?
So I apologize if I'm asking something you covered. I might have missed it while I was furiously writing down some other things. I know that you mentioned that there's different user policies and channel policies that are options now. Are there individual groups that you can go for channels? Or let's say you have a legal channel, you have your HR channel, whatever. Are you able to do policies for each of those as well as different user groups?
What kind of, are you talking about retention or are you talking about general policies?
The
or?
retention policies.
Okay,
or anything like
yeah,
that.
not at a channel level, but at a team level, absolutely.
Okay.
Team X can have message retention policies that say delete messages after 90 days, and the other one, Team Y, can have a policy that says delete messages after 180 days.
Okay.
But there's something that you're going to want to pay attention to. If you ever go in the bottom left-hand corner of Teams, there's things that says share ideas or request feedback. There's something that takes you to something called user voice. One of the top user voice asks of Microsoft Teams is support for private channels, where basically you can set permissions on the individual channel as opposed to at the team level.
Yeah,
and so when we do that, we will look at the capability,
Yeah.
whether we can support retention at that level. But so that's just something you want to probably pay attention. Watch.
Yeah, that was one of the other things that we were looking at is even sub-channels in the individual teams in case there was some other retention policies for some reason. It had to do with either a project or something like this where we had to say 7 days, but other channels could go longer than that. I was wondering if there's options.
Yeah, right now our construct or container is the group. So everything operates at that level.
Right.
Channels are all within the group. They're a construct of our UI and their document construct. But like Mark is saying, when we do private channels, we might change that implementation and have some more features around it.
All right, thank you.
Is there any plan to do supervision?
Yeah,
Is that
yeah.
coming?
So this, what I kind of showed in the roadmap here, is sort of stuff that's either happening or in the very near term. When you start looking at financial services, there are a set of other things: ethical walls, supervision, customer key, customer lockbox. There's other sets that go beyond this. Just given where we're at today and all the other things going, we just didn't want to go too deep into that now. But that's absolutely clear.
Yeah.
We meet with banks quite frequently. Going to Washington, D.C. to meet some folks from DoD recently. So there are capabilities that go beyond what's stated here. But they're probably a little bit further out, looking into sometime later next year where we're going.
Okay, thank you.
Is the allowed list of apps functionality generally available?
Excuse me?
Is the allowed list of apps
Yeah.
functionality?
Is it out or we're being rolled out? It literally is either out or it's about to, it's in the
You don't
process of
see
rolling
it?
out.
Okay. Yeah, you should report that. I think it's in the process of rolling out, but we would want to know why it's not there. Yeah.
And so I believe it may be going through a set of rings, and it
Yeah,
may not be fully rolled out.
Okay, so
But
real soon now.
Very, very soon.
Very
I mean,
soon,
the code's
yeah.
written. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Over here.
So when we put people on legal hold, we like to get everything that they do going forward from that point, which is easy to do in email. But how do you do that in Teams for the stuff that's stored just in like the group mailbox? How is that?
So let me understand your question. So you put the group mailbox on hold, obviously, and then any channel conversation that goes after that point from the date on which you've placed that hold is immutably preserved in the group mailbox. Does that meet your requirement?
Well, how do you find proactively and not reactively how many groups that person is a member of? Because if I had a group mailbox to hold one day, that person's added to a new group and a team the next day, do I have to go back out and find that person just got added?
As of now, you would have to do it at a point in time. The day you decide, and I know holds probably you're pessimistic because you want to take into account everything that they're touching.
Yeah.
So at a point in time that you decide that you have to do the hold, you would have to do it. And then if they're getting added to more teams, you would have to look at the audit log event that would tell you that they're getting added to teams, which we're kind of working on. And then you would know that they're getting added to these teams, and you would include all of them in your scope.
But we are talking to the folks who do legal hold about in eDiscovery about the ability to make it easier to handle that.
We understand that today it's kind of like you have to take many things and have steps before you can put a hold. Like it's not a person-centric thing, it's like location-centric. So that's the feedback that the eDiscovery team is working on. And in fact, we're having a conversation with them with a big customer this morning and at lunch.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
I have two questions. So the first question is, if you have a channel conversation and maybe only some messages are relevant and you want to extract that because you don't want retention to come and delete it, can you extract just certain messages within the chat?
Are you talking about extracting it in compliance content search?
I'm not quite sure what that means, but let's say, so if there may be like within a conversation, there's like a few messages that's kind of relevant to, you know, a transaction that we want to keep, but retention policy will come in, you know, 6 months later to delete it. How do I extract just a portion of that and save that? Because in the past, all these were in the email, right? So they could extract the email, save it off as an MSG file.
The challenge with that is whether you empower the individual user to do something that would be against what the tenant admin policy has been set. And so right now, there would not be, if the tenant or system administrator has set the policy, that would be enforced by the policy. So we're not empowering the individual user to make a choice to override what the system administrator set.
So there is a feature in the Security and Compliance Center called Advanced Retention Settings. With our first launch, we won't be doing that for teams, but using that feature, you can use keywords to exclude or include certain things in the scope of your retention process. So you would probably use that. That's an advanced, but our first release is not going to have it, but we're going to work on getting advanced retention settings for teams as well, where you can do keyword-based searches in the scope of your retention policies, and also things like policies and templates, classifications. So when we do those, then we'll be able to do that.
So second question, so if you have a Teams, can a Teams replicate across multi-geo?
Not today. Yeah, so that's also, let's talk just real briefly about that. So we're pursuing where we have data residency in country for certain countries, specifically Japan, India, United Kingdom, Australia, and Canada. I guess the United States is here by default. And as we do that, a follow-on logical step is for us to also support multi-geo, where this is where you have a single tenant, but you have data residing in multiple regions. So this is something we'll grow, but it's just a little bit further out down the roadmap.
Right, thank you.
We have some very, very large and very important customers who absolutely want that, though. So we're very, very aware of it, and it's definitely on the roadmap. It's just
and Exchange and SharePoint are working on it. In fact, I attended a session today about Exchange multi-geo support. So whatever solution they come up with, Exchange mailboxes and group mailboxes, we'll latch onto that.
Okay.
And we're working directly with them as well.
But you basically have to kind of opt certain teams, kind of like with SharePoint and Exchange, you basically, these mailboxes and these SharePoint sites I want to be included.
Yeah, so they're looking, in 2018, they'll be offering the support in Exchange and SharePoint, and then as Teams is built on top of that, we'll be taking advantage of that infrastructure as well.
Okay, right, thank you.
Is the issue with that, sorry, another follow-on, is the issue with that the fact that the mailbox would be in the right location, but the chat service?
So your individual chats, if you think about your mailbox, you have allowed data location, preferred data location. The preferred location of your mailbox would be in whatever location you're in. You could be a member of 10 teams, and those 10 teams could, in theory, be in multiple locations. And then the idea is that we'd need to have cache, basically, locally, so you'd be able to go to, say, a single data center and pull the information from. So that's probably a lot of the work around it.
So kind of a follow-on question to the guy that was up here just before, where you talked about the litigation hold when you add somebody to new groups. So if I do an eDiscovery and I'm saying any content this user's created goes on hold, will that go through the group mailboxes as well, or will it only be his direct IMs?
If you put it on the user mailbox, it's only going to be the chats that you or that user is having in one-to-one chat or one-to-N chat, which we call group chats. But if you want to put it on a group mailbox that represents a group, that represents a team, then it will cover the channel messages that are sent within the team and its channels.
So I'd have to update my eDiscovery query to add the extra groups.
Yeah,
as well,
and then
as
you would find, as the other person was asking, like all the groups that the person is part of, and you'd include all of them.
And that's feedback we were mentioned earlier that yes, that's what you have to do today. We're kind of working with the teams to try to say, look, we need to make that easier.
We want to make it so that you just pick a person and then everything underneath gets everything for you.
And then one of you guys said something, and I want the timeline on it, private channels in the teams.
So we're not going to, I can't put a timeline. What I can do is very explicitly say, we have developers working on that right now. I can't publish a date, but we're working on it. It is the #1 ask in our user voice at the moment after guest access has gone out. And, but we're definitely working on it. I just can't provide you a date.
It's the reason I can't get any teams to do POC with Teams.
Okay. No, yeah, we recognize it's an adoption blocker for some organizations, and we understand it very seriously. We would love to have it. It's just we're working on it.
Because in your example, right, in a project, I have projects with legal involved. I don't want legal looking in the tech channels because then they get confused and that causes them headaches.
Yeah.
Right.
Fair enough. Completely understand.
One last question.
Thank you. Sorry for holding you up. More of a roadmap question. Our company, most of them can use the Office 365, but due to regulations, some of our guys who use ITAR or EAR information can't use the cloud. So we're looking at things like Defense Cloud or Gov Cloud. As you are improving the information protection all the time in Azure and Office 365, is there anywhere in your roadmap where you might see an option where people like us can use the regular tenants?
I'm sure.
Is your question about when Teams will be available in the more sophisticated and advanced Gov clouds?
So exactly. No, not Teams being available, but can we use a regular, as you improve your security configuration options, could we ever foresee using regular tenants for those purposes?
I think what he's trying to ask is, like, will you use the normal e-SKUs in regulated industries? Yeah. We actually are working, and this will be next year, to put Teams into the government SKUs as well as the more restricted industries, the ITAR and the DoD offerings. And so our solution would be that you should use or wait for that. But unless you
But you're going to see that over the course of 2018. That's definitely a big push to be able to make it available. And there's really 3 environments: the government community cloud, the GCC High is what we call it, and then DoD cloud. We're pursuing all 3 of those in this next calendar year.
All right, thank you.
And especially as you think about the convergent story with Skype for Business, if you're in Skype for Business, we're saying, hey, Teams is the next thing. Obviously, we have to make it available. And so part of that is also going through the FedRAMP audit as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks all.